Hello everyone and welcome back to Axon Gamers E3. So this week has been full of great news. Actually, E3 as a whole this year, I don't think was as great as previous years, but it was still a good E3, and I think that we got some really nice news every now and then. But what I do want to say about E3 this year is that I think everyone got something. So it was a very diverse E3, and I've been talking to a lot of people, and it seems like the conferences I liked the least were some other people's favorites. So um today I'm gonna share my thoughts. I actually took some notes. If I look down, that's why. But the thing is that um, they announced so many games on Xbox conference, for example. They announced 42 games, I believe. Here I just wrote down the ones that I thought look interesting, and there still were not that many. So maybe um, I don't play as much variety when it comes to games that I used to, but I still have a lot to talk about today, so let's get to it. First up is Electronic Arts. That was the first conference we had, and there's not a lot to say about it really, for me anyway. Um, the first thing I wrote here is A Way Out. That was a indie game, I believe, or it was made by the creator behind Brothers, a indie game at least. And but this game looked really good, and it's a co-op only game, so you need to play this together with somebody else, which I thought was really cool. You can do this offline or online, but you need to play it co-op. And I mean that's awesome because some of my favorite video game experience has obviously been playing co-op. They never stack up to the best single player games because spending 100 hours on a game, that's nothing you do together with somebody. But co-op games are great, and there hasn't been a lot of those recently, so that was a good announcement. The other thing EA announced was Anthem. It's the next game by BioWare. Um, it looks a lot like Mass Effect when it comes to design, but it reminds me a lot of Destiny. So I think this is going to be a MMORPG, very much like Destiny, but made by BioWare. They made the Star Wars MMO, I believe, which was a pretty good game. I played the beta, and it was fine. But I much prefer the single player games from BioWare. But this, I mean, I'm always giving BioWare a chance, and this is supposed to be like their main team. So people who got disappointed by Andromeda might want to check this out because this is probably the game um, that the BioWare you liked has been doing their best to make, while some other guys made Andromeda, I guess. Um, but they didn't show Anthem at EA's conference. They did that later on Xbox. So as far as EA's conference goes, for me, A Way Out, the co-op game, and just the announcement of Anthem was it for me. It was a very cringy conference. So here's the thing: when it comes to press conferences, I like when they talk. So maybe like show two or three games and then talk with the audience just to make sure that everybody's excited and still there. Because what can happen is if you show 5 games in a row and maybe I'm not interested in 2 or 3 of them, I can get very bored. And then if they like don't say anything really, I know it sets a very bad mood. And I thought EA was good because they constantly um, talk to us. So I mean that's a good thing. I have to give them. Although they brought a lot of YouTubers, which were very cringy. See, I'm not saying that I could have done anything better, but with these people, it was like they said hi and then they just stood there. You might want to check out the reveal for the new Need for Speed game because, yeah, that was probably the worst one. Anyway, moving on to the next conference. This was the other day, so um, yeah, I believe it was like 24 hours or so after EA. That's when we had the Xbox conference, and this was a good one. Um, Probably my favorite conference when it comes to like the presentation as a whole. I think they did a great job announcing stuff, both hardware and software, and just some nice features, which I'm gonna get into. But they start their conference with the new Xbox One X. This is the Project Scorpio, the brand new console. So it's interesting because this is the best console when it comes to graphics. So if you have a regular PS4, or maybe if you have a regular Xbox One and you feel like getting a PS4 Pro, now you actually have the choice if you want to get the better graphics on the Xbox console instead. This is primarily for multi-platform games, I'd say, because those are the ones that usually varies a lot in graphics. The first four titles are always very well made. Games like Bloodborne and Gears of War 4. I think those games are gonna look amazing anyway. Like Horizon, for example, that's a beautiful game on a stock PS4. But I was impressed by the system. Xbox One X, it's smaller than the slim Xbox One, which is pretty impressive because it's even better than the PS4 Pro, and the PS4 Pro is bigger than the slim Xbox, so pretty cool stuff. But moving on from the hardware, the game, they showed a bunch of games, obviously, but the first one that grabbed my attention was Dragon Ball Fighters with a Z. And that's such a cool game, not just because I'm a Dragon Ball fan, but I've been playing a lot of competitive Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Marvel vs. Capcom 3, the first version. And the new Marvel vs. Capcom game that they're making does not look a lot like Marvel 3 in mechanics, graphics, and everything. It looks very different. But this Dragon Ball game actually looks pretty much like a clone of Marvel 3. So if you're a fan of that game, you have to check this out. And if you're one of those who's been waiting for like a proper fighting game within the Dragon Ball like IP, this is probably looking to be the best one. It looks like Guilty Gear pretty much. It's made by the same creators who made Xrd, the latest Guilty Gear. So it has amazing graphics, and they really get the Dragon Ball art style perfectly with the 2.5D. So check out Dragon Ball Fighters for sure. Awesome game, and I'm sure that's gonna be my next competitive fighting game. So I'm very stoked for that. Next up was a game called The Last Night. This was a indie game. It reminded me of Blade Runner or just cyberpunk 80s style in general. Very cool game. It mixed like sprites with a 3D environment with a lot of post-processing effects, like some awesome lighting and shadows and stuff like that. They never really said or showed what kind of game it is, but I guess it's one of those story-driven indie games, and those are always good. So that was a nice announcement. Then we saw Code Vein, and Code Vein is something we've seen before, so this is nothing new. However, it looks very much like Bloodborne, and Bloodborne is one of my favorite games, but with a anime twist. So you have. It's interesting. The characters looks more like something from God Eater, but the gameplay is purely Bloodborne. I'm not sure if it's made by From Software, but yeah, definitely looks like Bloodborne a whole lot. So awesome stuff there. A game for kids, I believe. It's called Super Lucky's Tale. It's a platformer, but a very slow platformer. Doesn't look very challenging, but more like fun and cute in some kind of way. I like the art style and the music. I mean, it looked like a fun game, but I'm not sure if it's anything for us. But it's great to see that they're making diverse games like that, and that the new generation actually gets something to play. Xbox One and like this generation as a whole doesn't have a lot of games for kids. So I thought that was a great announcement too. Then we saw Life is Strange. Before the Storm, I believe it was called. It's a prequel to Life is Strange, a game that I actually enjoyed a whole lot. So, so I will probably play that as soon as it comes out because I really like the original. But this is not Life is Strange 2. So this is kind of like a spin-off. They are still working on Life is Strange 2. So this is something to play in between, I guess. Um, they did show the game afterwards, like more gameplay and stuff. And I mean, it looks like the first game, really. So if you like that, check this out. Then probably not counting Dragon Ball, this was probably the best of the entire conference. Ori and the Blind Forest got a successor or like a sequel, and the game is called Ori and the Will o' the Wisp, I believe. But it looks just as good, if not better. It's impressive because Ori and the Blind Forest is one of the best looking 2D games I've ever seen. It doesn't use pixel art or sprites, which is one way to make a high definition 2D game look amazing because you have so many pixels to work with. Instead, it uses something similar to Rayman Legends, if you've seen that game. But way better, way better. So if you never played the original Ori and the Blind Forest, check it out because it looks very good, and I'd really like you to see what it looks like because it's such an amazing graphical experience. But then also it's a very strong Metroidvania game. It's probably one of the best Metroidvanias from this generation. So there's that too. It's sadly a Xbox One exclusive for consoles and also available on PC. So play it on PC if you have to. But I think it's one of the better games on Xbox. And to have a sequel that's amazing news. Like I said, some of the best for sure. Right, and then they actually announced the backwards compatibility with the original Xbox games. We recently got a remaster of Phantom Dust, which is a Xbox Xbox One. I was about to say original Xbox exclusive, and it's cool because we never had one of those. So to see Phantom Dust was really cool. But now they actually are making the discs work, and that's amazing. I'm not sure if the games are gonna be widescreen or upped res, but to actually play all my original Xbox games on the Xbox One X, it's gonna be impressive. If I can play Shenmue 2, that's cool. I mean, there are still some games on that console I haven't played, and what can I say? It's just nice to have more options. Sometimes you want to use a certain console, and if I can play a game that's not available on Xbox One, on the Xbox One through a service like this is a great new feature. So yeah, there's that. And they also announced later, after the conference, that they are gonna remake the original Xbox controller for Xbox One and PCs. This is something they said before but never showed. But now we actually saw like more of an official announcement on this. So if you're a fan of that controller like I am, it's one of like, I don't want to say my favorite controllers because I never spent a lot of time with it, but I really like the original Xbox controller. It looks very big, but it doesn't feel too big. Like, I think it feels just right for my hands at least. But it's a great controller, and I might get one. We'll see. Then the last thing they showed on the Xbox conference was Anthem, the game I mentioned in the EA conference, which they announced over at EA, but they never showed gameplay. Here they showed a lot of gameplay, and the game looks amazing. Like I said, similar to Destiny, but in a third person, like more Mass Effect 3 way. It looks amazing. It looks really good. But the thing is that I do not play MMORPGs anymore, and I'm not willing to delve into that. I've been way too addicted to MMORPGs, so I really don't want to play any one of those. But I might check it out. Who knows? But if you're a Mass Effect fan like me, I think you should check the trailer for Anthem because it looked really promising, for sure. And graphically, I thought it looked very good as well. I think it's one of those games that could have been an Xbox One X exclusive, but they're not gonna do that, so yeah. in the middle of the night, for us over here in Sweden at least, after Xbox, they showed the conference for Bethesda. And I'm not a Bethesda fan. I do not like the Elder Scrolls series. I do not like Fallout. Um, I am gonna try the Doom from 2016, and I think that game looks good. But then again, I haven't really played that too much, so there's not a lot for me to expect from Bethesda. So I actually decided to sleep and look it up in the morning. Um, and I think that was a good decision because the conference was nothing for me. But they did show two games that I was very excited to see actually, or one game that I was very excited to see, and one that I was that I thought looked really good. So first up was The Evil Within 2. The first The Evil Within, also known as Psycho Break in Japan, is a very very good survival horror action game. Similar to Resident Evil 4, it's one of those survival horror games with so good gameplay that you're gonna have a lot of fun as a action game as well. But the action never takes over. It's primarily a survival horror game in story and atmosphere as well as like art design. The thing is that it doesn't play like an old survival horror game, but the graphics and the story does it justice. Like yeah, the story is it's a very psychological and like interesting story, and it's scary in a lot of ways too. But the graphics really adds to that. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the first The Evil Within. Um, but they announced a sequel, and that's great because the first game had a good ending, but I think they could have done a lot more with the franchise, the IP, and I'm very glad that they did. So the announcement was amazing too because first they showed like a minute or two of CG, just showing the concepts of the game, and that's one of the primary reasons I play a survival horror game because of the designs. So while a lot of people complain about CG trailers, that was great for me because I got to see like monster designs and things like that. So awesome stuff. But that didn't end the trailer. It was a very long trailer, to be honest. So I guess for just as long, they showed gameplay afterwards. So it was one of those like 4 or 5 minute trailers where they showed CG for concepts and then gameplay. Um, Excellent stuff. I'm really happy, and that's a game I'm gonna buy day one for sure because the original Evil Within, um, I think, is better than Resident Evil 5 and the game since. And yeah, it's not like we're getting a new Silent Hill, so yeah, um, a huge announcement for me at least. And the other game was Wolfenstein 2, and I haven't played the first one, but I heard so many good things about it, and I always been interested in playing it. But here's the thing, because I know that I'm gonna play it sometime, I actually haven't even looked up gameplay for the first Wolfenstein. Um, so actually seeing the game now I understand why a lot of my friends really like the first game, because um, if it's anything like Wolfenstein 2, which they showed here, which looked freaking amazing, I can actually understand why they like it so much. So this made me more tempted to actually pick up the first game and to eventually play the second one because Wolfenstein 2 looked amazing. So there's that. So moving on from there to Devolver Digital. They haven't heard about these before, but they are the guys who make Hotline Miami, I believe. They had a conference which was just shit posting. They just made fun of conferences in general. They talked the same way they do during a conference, but we're just joking around. So if you want some laughs, you can always look that up. It was actually really funny, but as far as games goes, they didn't really announce anything for me. So just wanna give them a shout out because their show was really fun. PC Gaming had a show as usual, and I'm not a PC gamer, so I don't really know what to expect. But But they did announce a expansion for XCOM 2, and I haven't played XCOM the first one a lot. I did start the game and I liked it, but I never finished that. And XCOM 2, I haven't played at all. But I know they are good games, and the expansion for XCOM 2 is worth mentioning, I believe. So there's that. Other than that, I didn't see anything particularly interesting on the PC gaming show, so we'll leave that for now. Moving on to Ubisoft, their show was interesting, but not a lot of interesting announcements for me personally. But they did capture that E3 magic, which none of the other had done so far. They started off the show with actually inviting Shigeru Miyamoto from Nintendo, talking about the new Mario plus Rabbids game, Kingdom Battle, I believe it's called. It's a coming from XCOM 2, that's great. But this is a tactical RPG, just like XCOM, but with Mario characters and the Rabbids characters from Rayman. Very unusual and quirky, but it looks like a good game. So there's that, and another game for the Nintendo Switch. A system I considered a failure this day. This is the day before the Nintendo conference, so at that time I thought this was great news because this Switch really doesn't have a lot of games. And this looks to be a good one, so there's that. Then they showed South Park, Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, a lot of games I don't care about. But they did end their show with showing Beyond Good and Evil 2, and I haven't played Beyond Good and Evil, but I know it's a good game. I hear about it all the time, and we have those games like Shenmue, Half-Life 2, games that haven't got a sequel for a really long time. Shenmue is getting one eventually, and I'm very happy about that. But Beyond Good and Evil was one of those games, and for it to get a sequel announced like this, good stuff. I just want this to become a trend because there are so many great IPs that are dead that could use a revival or just getting sequels. So worth mentioning, I believe. Then I stayed up all night to watch Sony's conference, but it was a huge disappointment to me. The thing is that I've been talking about all these conferences, but nowhere to be seen was a JRPG. And I believe Sony would show one. If it wasn't a new announced one, at least it would be a old one, I thought. So probably Ni no Kuni 2 or just something we already heard about, like Final Fantasy. Something at least. But no, Sony didn't show any Japanese RPGs, so very unusual. But they did show a lot of games, and that's what they did. They didn't show any hardware. No new features for the Vita or PS4 or anything like that. Just games. And they showed so many games in such a little time that they didn't even talk to us. They showed, I think, 3 or 4 games before even saying hi. So I really didn't like the conference as a conference at all. And as far as the announcements goes, there was a lot of good games, like Uncharted, Horizon is getting an expansion, and things like that. But for me, not a lot. So I just want to mention the most important games they showed to me. And the first one is a full remake of Shadow of the Colossus. So that's a game I started but never finished, and I'm very impressed by the game. But it's one of those games that had such huge goals, and they managed to make the game. But the PS2 was not a very powerful system, and it was super impressive that actually was able to make the game for PS2. But it runs very slowly, and the remaster on PS3, while running better, it's in a higher resolution, and it kind of doesn't make the creator's intent, if that makes sense, justice, in my opinion. I think it looks worse in a lot of ways, even though it runs better. So, to have a full remake of the game with graphics that looks like tries to match the PS2 originals, but with all new assets for the PS4. Awesome. I'm definitely gonna play that. And then they showed Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and here's when I realized that Dragon Ball Fighters is gonna be my next game because Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite does not look very good. They showed a lot of story content, so this is probably gonna be more of those like Injustice games, which could be a lot of fun to play single player, but as a competitive fighting game, I'm not impressed at all. And Marvel 3 used to be my game. I played that every day for years. I loved that game. But Infinite, not impressed. Um, and then they showed God of War, obviously. Looks good. I'm not a God of War fan because I never played them. I have nothing against them. I think this new game looks good, but there's not a lot I can say about it. I think it looks more like The Last of Us or a um, like more of a story-driven game than a hack and slash, which is a good thing, I believe. But for God of War fans, I'm not sure what they think. I mean, if they turned one of my favorite hack and slashes like Devil May Cry into a game similar to The Last of Us, I would have been surprised. But I'm sure it's gonna be a good game. So. Detroit, the next game by David Cage, I believe his name is, the guy who made Fahrenheit, Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls, all games that I'm a huge fan of. So this is going to be a great one. It's about a society with like human robots. I can't say a lot about this game. Check it out if you're interested. But it's one that I am going to play day one, I believe. I played those other games in like one sitting. I'll probably do the same with this one. But one of those like modern point and click games. We don't have point and click adventure games anymore. So this is like trying to tell a story with quick time events only is kind of like the next generation point and click, I believe. So this is one of those. If you liked Life is Strange, the Telltale games, maybe check this out. But it's called Detroit and something else. They always have like these secondary subtitles. But I don't know. So there's that anyway. But they after that game and like a bunch of other announcements, they actually came back on scene again just to say like, I hope you enjoyed the show and everything. This surprised me because Xbox was going on for 2 hours, but Sony was only 1 hour, I believe. I think it was 58 minutes or something. Very unusual because Sony is usually the best of the entire E3 conference or like the event. But no, not a lot of impressive announcements to me anyway. But they did say goodbye and then they showed Spider-Man. And this looks like a very good game actually. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, but more so of like the old comics and Spider-Man as a character and like the lore, I guess. I haven't never like played Spider-Man games, but this looks like a really good one. A bit too many quick time events for my taste. There was like 2 or 3 minutes where the game looked like FMV game, like one of those old QuickTime games from the Sega CD. Weird, almost like the game played itself. But the combat looked interesting, very much like the Batman games. A beat 'em up game basically, but very polished. That's the thing, I guess. But it looks good. I'll probably play it sometime. But that's it for Sony, believe it or not. So, staying up all night waiting for Sony's event, and then finally getting some sleep. I was very excited to watch Nintendo the day after that. Nintendo was earlier, so it was not in the middle of the night over here. It was like in the evening, so that was great. Had some good food, played a bit, and then we had Nintendos, and oh boy, this was the top of E3 for me. Remember what I said about not showing any JRPGs in the other ones? Nintendo started off showing one, and that's Xenoblade 2. And the original Xenoblade is one of my favorite games of all time. Xenoblade Chronicles X was a huge disappointment to me. I enjoyed the game, but I didn't think it was a good one. I think it has too many flaws, and it's nothing like the first game. Even though it's one I think you might enjoy too. It's it's not what you're after if you played and finished the first one and really like that. This though looks like a proper Xenoblade 2, and that's basically why it's called Xenoblade 2, I believe. Um, Amazing stuff. We've seen the game before, so this is not a new announcement. But to see that the game is not a concept, but actually like a almost a finished game. The game looks like it's working and it plays great. It looks great. It has a lot of cutscenes, which we saw in the trailer, which is a good thing. Xenoblade X didn't have like barely any story at all. So this seems to have a proper villain, proper characters, good stuff. Then they showed a Kirby game. I don't play those anymore. I haven't in a lot of years, but I enjoy them and I think they are good games. So another good announcement. This was a brand new announcement and it was for the Nintendo Switch. So already two games for the Switch. Then Reggie came back and talked more about like I can't remember exactly what, but like Nintendo stuff in general. Made sure we were having a good time. It's always nice that they show a bunch of games, like I said, and then come back to us and talk for a bit. And then, fuck, I forgot his name, but the creator of Pokemon came back or was talking about the recently announced Pokken Tournament Deluxe. And how that's not the only Pokemon game we're getting for Switch, but he's actually making a RPG as well. It could be similar to Pokemon Colosseum and XD, or it's a mainline Pokemon game, which I hope for, but we'll see about that. And after that, we saw a teaser for Metroid Prime 4, and I have not played and finished Metroid Prime 3, so well, I'm super stoked for the announcement. I think it was one of the best announcements like in the entire E3 because this is something we've been waiting for a very very long time, and there wasn't a lot of those kind of announcements during E3. So good stuff. And for the Switch, I believe. And then they showed a Yoshi game for the Switch as well. It looked like Woolly World in style, but not in gameplay. So, like I said about that Super Lucky's Tale during the Xbox conference, this looks like a kid's game. Very slow, you collect things, doesn't look very challenging, but just fun to play. So, happy to not have another one of those. We need more games like that. Even if we're not interested, like very interested in those games ourselves, I think they are some of the best announcements for gaming as a whole. We need more games for kids, I believe. After Yoshi, oh right, I couldn't read my note. I actually wrote it down as waifu muso. No need to explain that joke. But they did show Fire Emblem Warriors, and yeah, another Muso game, one of those like hack and slash, like brain dead hack and slash games with no real structure when it comes to a single player campaign experience. It's mostly just killing enemies with your favorite characters. So if you're a Fire Emblem fan of more recent years and you play the game for the characters and not for the story or the gameplay, this could be cool, because it sure seems to have like most of the Fire Emblem characters, and it's awesome to see the renders. This is like Fire Emblem with amazing graphics and obviously a whole new gameplay mechanic. It doesn't play anything like Fire Emblem, but it does have the characters, and I did enjoy the cutscenes in Awakening and Fates, and this looks a lot like those in terms of graphics. So yeah, good stuff. Then they showed DLC for Zelda. The first DLC pack, which we're getting in a few weeks, I think, and then the second DLC, which they have not talked about yet, which seemed to be a expansion for the game, more story, more gameplay. Um, I believe it's one where you play as Zelda. From if you played Breath of the Wild, you know that before the game takes place, Zelda had her own adventure. So if we can play that as like a second campaign, I really hope so. That would have been great. And then to end the show, they showed Mario Odyssey, and like Mario games are always good, but I've not been the huge fan of 3D World and the Galaxy 2. I miss the old Mario games for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to talk about that too much here, but I'm sure all of you know the differences between Mario 64 and Sunshine compared to Galaxy 2 and 3D World. It's more of an adventure and like a single player campaign than just tiny levels. So yeah, there's that. Super Mario Odyssey reminds me a lot more of the older games with like a more consistent single player experience and not just a lot of short levels. Um, it looks less gimmicky and more like a proper game, if that makes sense. Which I didn't feel the first time they announced this. So this is great news too. They actually made the game look a lot more interesting to me. So finally excited for that game a lot more than I was before. So this turned Switch, the console without any games, into a console that is actually getting games this year and even more games next year. One of the best things about the Nintendo conference was that they showed games that are coming out this year. So not just ideas. I mean, Metro Prime 4 is not going to come out for a long time, but we did get games that are going to get released this year. Xenoblade 2, surprisingly, is probably going to come out this holiday season. So very, very excited for that. Then after the conference, Nintendo also had like their usual Treehouse live stream where they play all the games they showed. So we got to see like 40 minutes of Xenoblade 2 gameplay, which was amazing. But then during these live stream, they also announced even more games. They announced a 2.5D Metroid game for the 3DS, which looks amazing. It's a remake of Metroid 2, which got a fan remake very recently, but this is a official one, and I have not played the fan one, so I might want to do that and then play this official one. But I just want to say that this official remake of Metroid 2, it's called Metroid Samus Returns. It looks awesome. It's like a 2D game with 3D graphics, and yeah, it just looks super solid. What more? Yeah, of course, Mario and Luigi RPG, the first one, Superstar Saga, got a remake with the graphics from Paper Jam and Dream Team. So it has like that amazing art style. I think that's one of the better looking games on the 3DS. But this game seems like from watching the live stream, it looks like it's 60 FPS, which I do not remember Dream Team being that fluid. So if the remake of Superstar Saga can look as good as Dream Team, but in 60 FPS, that's incredible for the 3DS. Maybe they're taking advantage of the new 3DS hardware. I'm not sure, but great announcement. Anyway, like that's such an amazing game, and if you did not play the original Mario and Luigi RPG, look forward for this one because I think it's the same great game but just looking a lot better. Hoping for that at least. So that wraps it up. I am not sure what I want to say, but I just want to say that these were the conferences, but E3 is a lot more. At the E3 event, you can play all these games, or most of them, and they keep announcing more stuff outside of the conferences. We did get a trailer for Ni no Kuni 2, and we did get a trailer for Sonic Forces and Kingdom Hearts 3, so I want you all to go over to gematsu.com, and because that's my favorite news site of choice, and just see all these things, because there's a lot more from E3. There was like amazing announcements. I don't remember all of them, but I think you should check it out because there was some amazing trailers shown post conferences. So there's that. I guess that'll be it for today. So thanks a lot for watching as always, and take care. Until next time, get gaming.